obey is better than sacrifice. These are the words that Samuel said to Saul when he had failed to obediently complete his God-given assignment to go and destroy the Amalekites and everything that belonged to them. Hey everyone, how are you all doing? I hope that you're all great and that everything is going well on your end. For those that are new, I'm Miss Tori. Welcome to the channel, welcome to the fam. I hope that you guys are taking care and that you guys are actually good, you know? So as most of you guys know, or as everyone should know, one of the foundations of my channel is faith, which is basically the extension of a blog that I already have called Enameled with Grace. So I hadn't done a faith related video yet. So, you know, I've been meaning to do one, but it just didn't feel like the right time yet. And now it is 3 minutes to 1 in the morning. And I just felt like, I think it's time to do this video. So guys, when you see me without makeup and with this book, just know it's about to get serious. It's about to go down. Like, serious business. So if I don't have my makeup on, just know that it's time for some serious business to go on. Like, so yeah, guys. So as of late, I've been reading the books of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, both books, and I recently just finished reading the book of 2 Samuel. So I've now finished reading both books. And guys, you know when you read a book, and any book, be it the Bible or any other book, you know, it feels like the book comes alive to you. You know, you're having conversations with yourself, you're having debates, arguments, you're having reactions. It's like, what? Did this really happen? When? Where? What? How? And you know, it's like it's really happening. But I've never enjoyed reading any books in the Bible the way that I've enjoyed reading the book of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. Like, both books came alive to me in a way that I can't even explain. Like, you know, I love reading the Bible. I love the Bible. And it always reveals so many things to me, and it always speaks to me, and it's such a life-changing book. But, you know, I'd always hear about David, and, you know, like we all hear about David growing up. Like, you know, how he was a man after God's own heart, how he killed Goliath. But when you actually now read about him for yourself, it just comes alive in a completely different way, you know. So like, I've really enjoyed reading both of the books of Samuel, and yeah, to me it was just amazing. But when I was reading the book of 1 Samuel, one lesson in particular stood out to me, and it had a lot to do with obedience. Like, if there's anything that I learned from the book of 1 Samuel, obedience, guys. Like, hey, it really stood out to me. So like, when I was reading this book, I wrote down some notes, and I actually wanted to write a blog post, but then something was just like, no, do a video instead. So I wrote down these notes probably like 3 weeks ago. I think it's even been a month. Just know, guys, every time before I share anything with you guys, just know that I've probably had it for about no less than 2 weeks. And, you know, I'm just finding the right time to do it because, you know, I want to be in the right space, the right frame of mind, you know, have the right heart posture even when I'm saying it. So yeah, I've had these notes, and I didn't know what to do with them. I was like, should I make a video? Should I write a blog post? And now I'm just at a point where I was like, no, I'm gonna do a video, you know. So as you can see from the title of this video, it says to obey is better than sacrifice. And this is what Samuel says to Saul in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 22. So yeah, guys, that is what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. We are going to be talking about obedience, because the way obedience came alive to me when reading this book, it was incredible. And we're going to look at 2 chapters in particular. We're going to look at chapter 13 and chapter 15 from the book of 1 Samuel. So yeah, guys, our main topic for today is Saul. You know, just to give you guys a bit of a backstory for those that maybe aren't very familiar with the book of 1 Samuel or the book of 2 Samuel. Samuel, the man who both of these books are named after, was a prophet of God. You know, God loved him, God was with him. It even says in the book of 1 Samuel, I think it's chapter 3 verse 19, that the Lord was with Samuel as he grew up. and he never let any of his words fall to the ground. So this already shows you that like God was with Samuel. He loved Samuel, and he worked through Samuel. He showed himself through Samuel, and he did a lot of great things through Samuel. And one of the many things that he used Samuel for was to anoint his chosen. There was a point in time where the children of Israel wanted a king. And at first Samuel was like mad, because the children of Israel were like God's children. I'm sure we all know the story of, the children of Israel, how they were slaves in Egypt. They were taken out. God did all these amazing things. He protected them. He delivered their enemies into their hands. He did all these wonderful things for them. But like sometimes they just still be offside and just, do certain things because they had issues, and we all have issues, and you know what it is. So yeah, there's a point in time where they were like, okay, we want a king. Like, we want a king to rule over us now. And at first Samuel was mad, and he was like, but God is your king. Like, why do you want a king? God is your king. He's been doing this and this and this for you, but you guys just keep being offside, right? But then God was like to Samuel, no, it's okay. Listen to the people. They want a king. I'm going to show you who I feel, I'm going to reveal to you who I want to place as king over these people. This is where Saul comes into the picture now. So Saul was the first king who God chose to rule over his children, the Israelites. And, he was the first one who was marked. I remember I watched this, I don't know if it was a series called Marked or if it was just a sermon that was called Marked by Pastor Mike Todd, where he was talking about how, a lot of people think that David was the first one to be marked by God, to be anointed by God, to be chosen by God. But it wasn't David, it was Saul. The only difference between the two of them is that Saul removed himself from the position that God had placed him in due to disobedience. So yeah, guys, when you look at the life of Saul, you really get a glimpse of, what disobedience does, to your relationship with God and to your life. And, it really takes away a lot, and I feel like the life of Saul is like a clear and good example that really shows us the effect that disobedience has on us, on our lives, on our relationships with God, because it really strips away a lot. So yeah, he is our main topic for today. He's the one that we're going to be talking about. And so yeah, guys, Saul was the first one to be marked. Pastor Mike Todd was talking about how when you're marked, you are chosen of God, you are anointed. There's certain promises that have been placed upon your life due to being marked, and every single child of God needs to understand that we are marked. And the only thing, and the Bible even says, the only thing that can separate man from God is sin, so probably disobedience, right? So just to get into the main issue of today, Saul was disobedient. That's like the main thing. So I'm going to give you guys 2 examples from the Bible of Saul's disobedience, and we're just going to talk about them just a little bit. We're not going to look at them in detail, but yeah, we're just going to look at them just a bit. So as you guys know, there were many times in the Bible, well, if you didn't know, there were many times in the Bible, in the book of Samuel especially, where the children of Israel went to battle with the Philistines, right? So in chapter 13, verses 6 to 13, it reads, let me just read it quickly. So basically, Saul had gone, I'm not reading it, I'm just still explaining. Saul had gone to Jonathan, Saul's son, attacked the Philistines. So this obviously sparked a war, and then they went and they went to go fight. But when Saul had gone to fight, he had gotten some very specific instructions from Samuel, because Samuel was a prophet of God. He was the one who basically kind of like advised the kings, tell them that this is what God is saying you should do. He was like their spiritual leader, helper, someone who like helped them in their walk with Christ. So before he went, or I'm not sure when exactly, but he was given strict instructions. So these were the instructions that he was given. So we're just going to read from chapter 6 from chapter 13, verse 6 to 13, but we're going to read in bits and pieces. So yeah, verse 6. When the men of Israel saw that their situation was critical and that their army was hard pressed, they hid in caves and thickets, among the rocks and in pits and cisterns. Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained in Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered them up the burnt offering. And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him. So just from that bit, right, we understand that Samuel gave Saul very strict instructions that, wait for me for 7 days. And then I guess they were going to give an offering unto God together. But then when Saul saw that, it seemed as if Samuel was late, like he was delaying, he didn't show up at the time that he had said he was going to show up. So he felt like, okay, Samuel's not showing up, so I'm going to do this by myself, okay? I'm going to go and I'm going to give this sacrifice by myself, right? So he went on, he gave the sacrifice, and as soon as he was done, Samuel showed up. So then when Samuel showed up, he was like, "What have you done?" asked Samuel. Saul replied, "When I saw that, when I saw that the men were scattering and that you did not come at the set time, that the Philistines were assembling at Michmash, I thought, now the Philistines will come down against me at Gilgal, and I have not sought the Lord's favor. So I felt compelled to offer the burnt offering." So just from this, we see that Saul was very impatient, with disobedience, like impatience. When you're impatient, it can lead you sometimes to being disobedient because you're looking for like the quickest way out. You're looking for the quickest way to do whatever it is that you want to do, that you end up resorting to some very irrational measures, because Samuel told him, "Wait for me, like come rain, come thunder, wait for me." 7 days. He was going to show up on the 7th day. And how do you know? Why do you don't even know why he was late? How do you know that God wasn't giving him more instructions that could help you, or that God was preparing something for you, or that he even delayed him on purpose to cause some kind of confusion amongst the Philistines or something like that? Like, God is sovereign, guys. He can really do whatever he wants. And because Samuel was the man that God had placed in Saul's life to help him, he should have trusted him. So already we see that with disobedience comes disobedience. An impatient person can become disobedient because it's like you just can't wait on God. You just can't wait on what he wants to do for you, what he has planned to do for you. You just want to rush. You just want to do things by yourself instead of waiting on God, And here God was going to work through Samuel, right? Because they were going to give this offering together. So now, because he had done it alone, verse 13 goes on to say, "You acted foolishly, Samuel. You have not kept the command of the Lord your God that he had given you. He would have established your kingdom." So now we see that Saul could not follow instruction. He lacked trust in the Lord because he lacked trust in God, and he was arrogant. He thought, like, I can do this by myself. He didn't put himself under the guidance of Samuel, the man whom God had given unto him to guide him. He thought, like, I can do this by myself. So as I was saying over here, so just from this passage alone, we see that Saul was impatient. He could not follow instruction by simply waiting for Samuel. He lacked trust in the Lord. He was arrogant because he thought, like, what? I'm dope. I'm king. I can do this by myself. And he couldn't humble himself. He couldn't put himself under the spiritual leadership, because he was king, but spiritually Samuel was above him because that's who God had given him to guide him, to advise him, to help him. He couldn't put himself under the man of God that God had given him to guide him. And because of that, he ended up being disobedient. He didn't know who he was, and he didn't know who he had, being God. He was scared. He's like, "Oh, the Philistines," because he rushed. Disobedience is also a result of fear. When you don't trust God, you don't trust that God is going to come through when he said he's going to come through. So now you're just rushing to do your own thing. You're just rushing to, making rash decisions because you're just on edge, and and he thought God was late, but God always works on time. A disobedient man is a foolish man. That is what 1 Samuel 13 verse 13 says. Because if 1 Samuel 13 verse 13 says that you have acted foolishly, So now we know that a disobedient man is a foolish man. So now we are going to read chapter 13, verse 14 to 15. Now, this is what was the result of his disobedience. This is now what happened to him. It says, well, part of verse 13 says, you have not kept the you have not kept the command that the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. So now we already know his kingdom wasn't established. God was already like, there was no foundation. It was done. And it says, but now your kingdom will not endure. Now he knows that his time of rule is going to come to an end pretty soon. It's not going to last like it should have if he had been obedient. It also goes on to say, the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him leader of his people, because you have not kept the Lord's command. So now he was replaced. These were the results of being disobedient. He was replaced. His kingdom was not established, and his kingdom will not endure. So these were the consequences. God, this is where David comes in, guys. David is my, I just loved reading about him. But yeah, like, he was replaced, guys, just because he couldn't follow instruction. Because the thing is, God can use anybody. He can work in and through anyone. So never take it for granted when you have been chosen, because God can use anyone, and you'll be replaced real quick. That's what I wrote in my notes over here, because just from doing that, he was replaced real quick, guys. So yeah, and now we're moving on to chapter 15. This one for me, this chapter for me is where he really lost it. Like, this is where he really just did the most. So in this chapter, given the assignment to go and attack the Amalekites. So we read in 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 3, God instructing, this is Samuel telling Saul what God instructed him to do. He said, now go attack the Amalekites and totally destroy everything. Totally destroy everything that belongs to them, right? Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. This was God handing over the Amalekites to the Israelites, because I guess God had placed judgment upon them and all of that because of some things that had happened in the past. So yeah, he had to go and do what God had told him to do. But look at what this guy does. Okay, look at what he does. It says in verse 20, sorry. It says in verse 7, it says, then Saul attacked the Amalekites all the way from Havilah to Shur to the east of Egypt. He took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive. He took and all his people and totally destroyed with the sword. But Saul and the army spared Agag and the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves and lambs, everything that was good. These they were unwilling to destroy completely, but everything that was despised and weak they totally destroyed. So what did verse 3 say? Totally destroy everything that belongs to them. But now they're thinking, no, we can't destroy the sheep. Like, we can't destroy the cows and stuff. Like, we gotta take them home to the mom, to the wives, to the kids. Like, we have to go back home with something. But God is saying, destroy everything. So a disobedient heart already is like, is an unwilling heart. You've been given an instruction, they're telling you do this, but you're not doing it. You function, when you're disobedient, you function based on conditions. Your love for God is conditional, because you're saying, okay, God, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do this, but the other part of like what you said, no, I'm not gonna do that, because you're thinking of yourself. It's kind of being like selfish. You're thinking about benefiting yourself, like, let me spare these things for myself, let me keep these things for myself. I'll only do half of what God said because I want to get this, and you don't trust that the reward that you're going to get from actually being obedient unto God will be way better, will be greater than these things that you're trying to save for yourself, you know, because he spared the animals, but the Bible says God told him destroy everything, destroy them and everything that belongs to them. So now because of this, now we're going to see what happens to him in verse 20. This is chapter 15. So it says okay, so now he was questioned by Samuel. In verse 19, he was questioned by Samuel, and Samuel was saying, why did you not obey the Lord? Why did you pounce on the plunder and do evil in the eyes of the Lord? And now Samuel is trying to, Saul is trying to, you know, defend himself, and he's like, but I did obey the Lord. Did you? He's like, Saul said, I went on the mission the Lord assigned me. I completely destroyed the Amalekites and brought back Agag, their king. The soldiers, you see, now he wants to put the blame on the soldiers. The soldiers brought, the soldiers took sheep and cattle from the plunder, the best of what was devoted to God, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God in Gilgal. Right. Did God say he wanted a sacrifice? No. Did God say, and okay, first of all, he's now shifting the blame to the soldiers. He's like, no, the soldiers are, so a disobedient heart plays the victim, you know. He's now saying, no, the soldiers were the ones who took the plunder. They are the ones who wanted it. They were the ones who wanted those things. And, you know, and also we took those things because we wanted to give them to God. We wanted to make a sacrifice unto God, you know. So as you can see, guys, here, this guy, Saul just did not know. Saul just did not know how to follow instruction. He's trying to make it seem like he was doing God a favor, or he's trying to make it seem like, you know, his heart was in the right place. Like, no, we took those things for God, but God didn't even want those. He said, go and destroy everything. And now he's saying, no, we took those things. First, he blames it on the soldiers. He's like, no, the soldiers took the plunder and everything that was good. So a disobedient heart plays the victim. A disobedient heart person just doesn't know how to take blame for what they've done. You know, they know that, yeah, over here I messed up, and they don't know how to just admit that, yeah, I messed up. So rather they'll blame it on somebody else. And then he goes on to be like, no, but like we took those things for God though. Like we wanted to sacrifice them, whatever. But God didn't ask you for that. If God wanted a sacrifice, he would have told you. God said, go and destroy everything. So Saul couldn't follow instruction. And another thing is that he always made it seem like there was a better way of doing things other than what God has told him to do. You know, he's creating, you know, like God didn't tell you to do that. You know, okay, let's say Saul's heart was in the right place even. Let's say he actually did care and want to like give the sacrifice unto God. At the end of the day, that was not the instruction. The instruction was go and destroy everything. Guys, that's all. And from this, let me just quickly go on to read. So now, Samuel replies Saul saying, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? This is in chapter 15, verse 22. And then it continues to say, to obey is better than sacrifice. God doesn't want all these things that we claim to. And you know, I think this is why some people, they make it seem like Christianity is so hard, following God is so hard. And it's like, it's because you're not following instruction. You get, it's like you're adding more, you're putting more onto your own plate. God doesn't want a sacrifice. He just wants you to listen to what he said. He just wants you to obey what he's saying. But it's like you're the one who's adding more onto your plate. You're the one who's like, okay, I'm also going to give God a sacrifice now. But he doesn't care about that. It says here, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king. So now we see that disobedience brings forth rejection from God. Like, I just feel like Saul did a lot, guys. You know, like, it's like he just couldn't follow instruction. He just couldn't do what he was told to do. And even though he never said it, he never maybe implied it, but he always acted like, no, I've got a better way of doing things. You know, yeah, God is saying this, I hear him, but like, I think that I should do this, you know? You're now thinking for yourself. You're not putting yourself under the greater power and listening to his voice and listening to what he's saying. And that's a problem that we all have, where we think, okay, yeah, I hear you, God. I hear what you're saying, but I feel like I should do this. I think this would be better for me. But at the end of the day, it's like, who's the great I am? You know, who's the one who created you? If he created you, he knows what's best for you. But it's like, you're out here just coming up with your own plans, your own scenarios, your own things, and where's that going to leave you? Rejected by God. Sometimes we do things in the name of doing them for God, but God doesn't even want those things. He didn't even ask for them. He did not instruct you to do those things. Disobeying God's word is rejecting God, because God is the word. Because in John 1 verse 1, you know, it says, you know, in the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God, and the word was God, and you know, all of that stuff. So when we don't listen to God's word, when we don't listen to his instruction, we're rejecting what he's saying, which is basically us rejecting him. Another thing, now we're going to go on to read chapter 15, 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 24. Saul says, then Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, I violated the Lord's command and your instructions. I was afraid of the people. Guys, let me just stop there real quick. I've been spending a lot of time in the Old Testament, right? Because I've just been on this tip where I want to go back to where it all began. Because I feel like growing up, I spent a lot of time in the New Testament. So since last year, I've been on this tip of wanting to read the Old Testament because I just want to go back to where it all began, you know, just see the things that happened and just, you know, come to a greater understanding of who God is. And I don't want to lie to you guys, a bunch of scary things happen in the Old Testament. Like, that is where you really see, like, that's where you really come to know God. Like, God is a loving God. God is a God who fights for you, who protects you. But God can get angry, guys. You know, in the Old Testament, you read about the ground opening up and swallowing a man and his entire household. And this Saul guy, Saul, had the audacity to say that I was afraid of the people, and so I gave in to them. Now we also see that a disobedient heart cares about what people think rather than what God thinks. You seek validation from people rather than from God. Which one holds the greater reward? What did he gain from listening to the people, since he had showed that their opinion mattered more to him than God's? And also, at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense that he feared the people. Guys, Saul was king. Saul was king. He had power and authority that he was given by God. If he had said to the soldiers, you can't take that, then they weren't going to take it. And even if they tried to come at him, don't you think God, the Spirit of God, was going to come upon him like it did many other times before, when he didn't go and just kill them and defend himself, and God would defend him, I mean. You know, so like, I really don't that and that. High school slang is messed up, guys. Verse 26, you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you as king over Israel. So just to round off today's little talk, guys, the key lessons that I really learned from here is that a sacrifice unto God is futile if the instructions which had to be done before are incomplete or done incorrectly with the wrong heart posture. I need to encourage all of us to obey God. You know, guys, the reward of obedience is beyond compare. It brings forth God's favor, his grace, and God loves us unconditionally, even when we're being disobedient. And he'll just be there waiting for us to come to our senses and to turn back to him, you know, when things have gone south and you now need him again. And that's the thing, like, God is always there, no matter what we're doing. But, you know, we don't want to make God reach a point where he looks at us and he regrets ever giving us certain things or putting us in certain positions, you know, because now that we're there, we can't be obedient. Now that we're there, we're forgetting who put us there, who took us there, how we got there. we didn't do this by ourselves, you know. So I just wanted to, you know, encourage everyone during this time, you know, to make time for God, you know, find time to read, find time to journal, find time to write, you know. This book will be coming back a lot. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you learned something. You know, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit me up, let's talk, you know, let me know what you thought about this video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Take care. Good night. It is now 17 minutes to 2 in the morning, so sis should probably get to bed. Okay, guys, bye.